I recently saw one of the best advertisements I've ever seen, especially if we narrow it down to branding advertisements on YouTube. But the same idea can work in a lot of different places and in direct response marketing as well, which we'll talk about in a moment. It's an ad by Lego, not the most likely candidate, I think, for the most brilliant ad I've seen. But they've also made one of the most common mistakes, especially advertisers make on YouTube, but elsewhere as well. But before I get to that, I mentioned it's a branding advertisement, not a direct response advertisement. I won't go very deep into it, but the basic difference is, and it is very significant difference, is that branding advertising, or branding marketing overall, doesn't aim to get people to do something immediately. Rather, it aims to create a positive image of the brand so that when the potential customer who has seen that marketing eventually ends up buying something like what this brand sells, then they have a positive affiliation or positive idea of this brand and are more likely to buy it. It can work. So if you're Coca-Cola or BMW or Lego, brilliant. In other cases, not necessarily the best idea, and I'll get to why in just a moment. But the alternative is direct response marketing, where you're specifically looking for a direct response, some sort of immediate action or almost immediate action from the person who sees the advertising or sees the other marketing. The benefit there is that you're able to measure the results because they are fairly immediate compared to branding advertising where there isn't any immediate effect. So it's always impossible to tell what parts of marketing are working if you're seeing some results. And that means you can't continue the effective ads and stop the ineffective ads, or continue the effective marketing and end the very costly ineffective marketing. Rather, you just have to do more of everything and hope that it works. And since often branding advertising and direct response to some degree as well, but branding is even more so, that advertising, even the effective kind, only works for a while until it loses its effectiveness. You can't just show the exact same ad day after day after day forever and expect it to always work the same way. So hence you have to all the time create new marketing without being able to tell what has worked before. You just have a general sense of, well, we've done this sorts of the stuff lately and it has kind of seemed like it might be working. We have a gut feeling it's working, so I guess we keep on doing that. It's incredibly difficult to make it work. Another issue with branding branding marketing is that the results are generally only visible you can never actually measure them directly, but even if it does work, you have to often wait for weeks, months, or even years before you make a profit. So if you need to make a profit in the next month or two, you usually cannot rely on branding of any kind of branding marketing to make that happen, whereas direct response can create a result almost instantly. If you show some ad, it can be that people click the ad and they buy within 5 minutes, or they buy within an hour, they buy within a day or week, and you can measure that very accurately. Even if you do marketing offline, it can still work. But anyway, I'm getting derailed a little, but that's the basic idea of branding advertising. But in Lego's case, I think it makes perfect sense. So why is this a good ad? Whenever you evaluate marketing, your own or others, the first thing to think about is the target customer. In this case, it's very, very wide. It's basically anyone who's likely to buy gifts for kids. This was not an ad for the kids who play with Legos. This was specifically an ad for adults who buy gifts for kids. The ad, I saw it in November before Christmas season, or specifically before Christmas present season. And I think I saw it because I'm in the age group of people, in the very large age group of people who buy gifts for children. So it makes sense to show that sort of thing for me, because when I then go and buy gifts, I have a positive image of Lego. The second thing to think about is the offer. In this case, it's less clear because it's branding advertising. It's just a very generic Legos. There's nothing specific, there's no specific set that they're promoting, there's nothing like that. It's just generally, hey, remember Legos when you go buy gifts. And the third thing is the message. In this case, you can never really know what the message is that they intended to get through. But in this case, I think there are fairly clear things that they're trying to make people think about. One of those is that, hey, don't you want to encourage kids to be creative? And it comes through really well. Another idea that I think they were trying to get to is this, like, don't you like the idea of playing with your kids or playing with the kids that you buy gifts for? And the third thing that I think they were going for was this idea of how Legos can be played alone, or you can play with them alone, but it's also very easy for kids to play with it, other kids with Legos, or even the adults. So I think those were the main things they were trying to communicate with the ad, and it worked really well. And what makes this ad so good is that it got those message ideas across really well. That's generally what determines how good your advertising or any marketing is. How good are the ideas that you're trying to communicate? How effective are they at making people want to buy what you sell? And how well you communicate them. And this ad did those brilliantly. So a lot hangs in the message. If it is effective, if you know what are the things that are most likely to make people want to buy, then great, you know exactly what to make people see. If you don't know those things, then you can never really expect consistent results. I'm doing a webinar very soon where I go through that idea in a lot more detail. There's a link to that in the description. The other thing I want to mention here is the music. I mean, the ad is basically just a song, so it makes sense to talk about it, and it makes a bigger difference than usual.
My horse is blue.
I see them blue.
The sky goes zoom for me
And I think to myself,
that's a pretty cool world.
But first of all, they picked a song that for the very wide target audience is, for many of those people at least, it's a somewhat nostalgic song. It makes them think back, perhaps even to their own childhood when they played with Legos. At least that's, I think, what they're going for here. And it works really well. Secondly, why I think the song, or the nostalgia factor of the song, is so good is that one of the main reasons for buying Legos as a gift is the nostalgia. People have had Legos as gifts when they were kids, or they've seen people get Legos as gifts for years and years, and it seems like a safe bet. It seems like an easy thing to buy, and the song is a very safe choice for that sort of association. So the mistake that they made, and I think this is a mistake that's probably the most common one in YouTube advertising, but this also applies to just about all other advertising as well. And there's sort of two sides to this. The first one is the one that applies everywhere. And it is that if your ad isn't super interesting immediately, if it doesn't catch people's attention immediately, it probably failed. And in this Lego ad, there's really nothing at the very beginning that would be super intriguing or super catchy. There's sort of the first funny line of lyrics before the 5 seconds when you can skip the ad, but I don't think that's really enough. It's not terrible, but it's not very good. And secondly, the people who are going to watch further, I don't think there's any clear correlation between their likelihood of buying the product that is being promoted and them watching on. I think why someone would watch this ad further, I can think of two reasons. One is that they're interested in the song. They then recognize the song and notice that, okay, the lyrics are different, and they're just curious to see how it plays out. And the other reason is that they're just interested in seeing how this ad works, like what the point of the ad is, because it's kind of confusing. Which is probably what the group that I fall into, but I think a lot of people would do that not out of professional curiosity, but because they're just a little confused, but they are like, well, maybe this is funny or something. But neither of those reasons has anything to do with their likelihood of buying Legos. You can argue that maybe there's a very mild connection between someone who's intrigued by something like that and their likelihood of buying Legos as a gift, but I don't think that's a very strong connection. The idea is that if you're able to push away everyone who isn't likely to buy in the first seconds, then only people who are more likely to buy keep watching the video. And that ends up making the video much more effective, or the advertisement much more effective, because your budget goes to showing it to people who actually are likelier to buy. In this case, there's none of that, really. Another issue with the beginning is that if you skip the ad, you don't see Legos. Or, well, you see Legos, but like you really have to be looking to understand that there's Legos. There isn't a Legos logo or anything else like that, so you completely miss the branding opportunity of the first seconds. And remember, this is a branding advertisement, so that's the whole point. So In a direct response ad, not nearly as big of an issue. I mean, you sort of lose the opportunity if you don't have your logo or something in the early part of the video, but it's usually not that big of a deal. But in a branding advertisement, you're just simply missing out on an opportunity. So I think that's just a fairly simple mistake. To be clear, I wouldn't recommend that they have a massive Lego logo in the beginning, because that would just make it look like an obnoxious ad. But if there was a very small Lego logo in a corner, or if they just showed Legos more prominently immediately, that seems like a more effective use of the 5 seconds that they have that people have to watch the ad. I'll put a link into the description to a page where I have that ad, so even if they take it off YouTube, you can still watch it there. And if you're interested in making video ads for YouTube or other ads either, in the near future, it won't be the next video, but in the next few weeks, I'm going to make a video about, I think, the easiest way to create an ad, especially for YouTube, but it's good for many other platforms as well, that creates a lot of value. So people who watch it genuinely get useful things from it, but it's still also a very effective ad. And really, it's one of the easiest ones to create. So if you want to see how to do that, then remember to subscribe and even press that bell icon if you want to make sure that you don't miss it. But in the next video, I'll actually talk about one of my own video ads that I'm just about to launch. And it's another fairly easy way to create very value-rich advertising that also generally is very effective. So if you want to see how to do that, another approach to it that works basically in any platform, there's maybe a couple exceptions, but generally it works on almost any platform, and it's very easy to make. At least I think it's one of the easiest ways to make effective ads that are truly useful for the viewers. Then subscribe so you don't miss it. If you have any questions about advertising or thoughts about this specific Lego ad, then feel free to leave a comment. I'll do my best to go through those questions in the next few videos or in the future videos. I'm also thinking of making a bit of a series out of my own video advertising, and specifically a few funnels that I'm advertising and how I'm analyzing the results, what sort of things I'm changing based on what I see, and so on. But I don't think I'm going to do that unless people actually show some interest. So if it sounds interesting, then tell me in the comments. And if you like this video, please click the like button. It's like a small thank you. That really helps me. So thank you if you do that. And I'll see you in the next video.